Hi guys, can I ask you some questions? Have you ever wondered what drives the economic progress of a country? Or why are other countries more developed compared to others? Just like the not so great economic progress of the Philippines compared to, let's say, the mighty US. What keeps poorer countries from developing? And what are the root causes of the global inequality? Can you even answer these questions? Or is there any answers to be had? Well, sadly, no. Life is meaningless, and it is devoid of answers, and searching for it is just a futile effort. We are an insignificant speck in the infinite cosmos, so why even bother? I'm just kidding, guys. So, there's one American sociologist by the name Immanuel Wallerstein.
And Immanuel Wallerstein developed the world system theory in the 1970s, which the theory will be the center of our discussion and it will give answers to the questions we previously had.
The world system theory, in a nutshell, describes the relationship between developed and underdeveloped countries. And it explains why some countries rise to world power and some doesn't. But before we dive straight into the topic, we'll first start a little more broadly.
Let's start with a core periphery model. So, what is it? From the word core, it means central and often foundational and essential part of something. And what about the periphery? Well, it is defined as the outward bounds of an area or an object, and it is distinguished or in contrast to the center.
Take, for example, our vision. The vision that's in higher resolution is our central vision. It is the vision that we are focused on, and it can be related to the core. And beyond that central vision is our peripheral vision. And why is it called the peripheral vision? Well, because it is in the outward bounds or outward limits of the central vision. And in contrast to the central vision, it has lesser resolution. And that is the difference between core and periphery in terms of definition.
In the context of the core periphery model, the quote-unquote core represents the dominant, developed, and economically superior core countries. The periphery, on the other hand, is composed of underdeveloped, marginal, and countries that are dependent to the core countries. Beyond the two, there's an extra classification, and it is the semi-periphery, which acts as a middle ground for both core and periphery. The semi-periphery is much higher in socio-economic status than the periphery, but relative to the core, it is still less developed.
Let's take a look at the core periphery model. As we can see here, the countries are color-coded and the specific color is designated whether a country is a core, a semi-periphery, or a periphery. The color orange represents the core, the lighter orange for the semi-periphery, and the yellow for the periphery. The example of the core are the US, Canada, and a little to the right are the Western European countries like France, Belgium, UK, and at the bottom right is Australia. And examples of the semi-peripheral countries are China, Russia, and the Latin American countries like Chile and Argentina. And lastly, the examples of the peripheral countries is our very own country, the Philippines, and most of the African region.
In a closely related concept, the Brandt line, which was developed by Willy Brandt in 1980, is an imaginary division that has provided a rough way of dividing all of the countries in the world into two divisions, the more developed countries and the less developed ones. When compared to the core periphery model, the Brandt line is more general and the core periphery model is more specific. Nevertheless, the idea of the less developed countries or the peripheries and the more developed countries or the cores still applies. But it must be noted that many countries in the poor south have become more developed since the 1980s, so the Brundtland model is not that accurate as of today. The trend in which countries are more developed compared to others can be traced back to the core exploiting the periphery. The core buys raw materials at an unfair, cheaper price and manufacture it into higher profit products and sell it back to the peripheries at a higher price, which doubles the profit gained by the core, and the peripheries on the other hand have minimal profits from their products, which causes them to have a slower pace of development. The example of this is the Barbasco plant, which is native to Mexico. Its root is used for the production of cheaper anti-inflammatory drugs, and because of the abundance of that raw material, the big pharmas from the US exploited it by buying it at a cheaper price and manufacturing it into high capital medicines, and then selling it back to countries like Mexico, resulting to the US having vast profits due to exploitation. So, those are the concepts of the core and the periphery on the whole. Now, a gentleman in the 1960s came up with utilizing the concepts of the core and the periphery, and obviously, it is Immanuel Wallerstein with his world system theory. The specific details will be further discussed by Andrew Von Lasam and the others.
Hello everyone, this is Andrew Von Lasam, a student of Iloilo Science and Technology University with a course Bachelor of Science in Mechanical Engineering, Section 1B. In this video, I will be talking about Immanuel Wallerstein. So, who is Immanuel Wallerstein and why we should address him? Based on what I have researched, Immanuel Wallerstein, born on September 28, 1930 in New York City. When Wallerstein became a teenager in New York City, he became interested in world affairs, particularly the anti-colonial movement in India. He attended Columbia University where he received a BA in 1951, an MA in 1954, and a PhD degree in 1959. Afterwards, he taught until 1971 when he became a professor of sociology at McGill University. Additionally, beginning in the 1970s, Immanuel Wallerstein became known for his world system analysis. As of 1976, he served Binghamton University as a professor of sociology until his retirement in 1999. After 2 decades, Immanuel Wallerstein died in Brantford on August 31, 2019 at the age of 88. In conclusion, Immanuel Morris Wallerstein was an American sociologist and economic historian. He is perhaps best known for his development called world system theory. So, Wallerstein's world system theory model is divided into 3 economic nations: the core, the semi-periphery, and the periphery. As you can see in the attached PowerPoint, there is an image of Wallerstein's world system theory model where it shows the interconnections of 3 economic nations, such that core countries is the most industrialized country which provide high profit consumption goods to periphery and semi-periphery countries. Then, peripheral countries, which is the underdeveloped country, will provide cheap labor and raw materials to both core and semi-peripheral countries. And lastly, the semi-periphery countries, which are the industrializing countries, which are positioned between the periphery and core countries. To sum up, semi-periphery plays a vital role where it contributes the manufacturing and exportations of a variety of goods. In this video, I will be discussing about the core countries and what countries belong to the core. So first, the core countries are dominant capitalist countries that exploit peripheral countries for cheap labor and raw materials. If you have watched my recent video about Wallerstein's world system theory model, I have stated there that core countries is the most industrialized country. So if core countries is the most industrialized country, it also means that they are the most dominant capitalist countries among the three economic nations. And also, I have discussed there the interconnections of three economic nations: the core, the semi-periphery, and periphery. The core countries provide high profit consumption goods to periphery and semi-periphery. And later on, the peripheral countries will going to return the favor, which is they will going to provide a cheap labor and raw materials. Second, they are strong in military power and not dependent on any one state or country. Yes, you have heard it correctly. They are strong in military power. Because guys, if you don't ask, core countries have three countries which are a permanent member of Security Council. So, what is Security Council? Security Council has 5 permanent members. China, which belong to semi-periphery. Russia also belong to semi-periphery. France, which belong to the core. United Kingdom also belongs to the core, and United States. So France, United Kingdom, and United States are 3 core countries which are a permanent member of Security Council. So what is the role of Security Council? Security Council is responsible for maintaining the international peace and security among all over the world, and they are not dependent on any one state or country because guys, core countries is the most industrialized countries. They are the most dominant and the most developed countries among three economic nations. So basically, without the help of two economic nations or any country, core countries will going to survive. And lastly, they serve the interest of the economically powerful. So I have here the example of core countries. Based on what I have researched, according to the World Population Review as of 2021, core countries have 20 countries. Those are Australia, Belgium, Canada, Denmark, Finland, France, Germany, Ireland, Italy, Japan, Netherlands, New Zealand, Norway, Portugal, Spain, Sweden, Switzerland, United Kingdom, and lastly, United States.
Yo. You got the, vaccine? Oh, you mean for the pandemic? Who even are you, man? Oh, I'm just like you, but just worse. Way worse. So like, you got it? Nah, man. Even I'm waiting for one of the core countries to make those.
Hey, what are you guys talking about?
Oh, we're just talking about the pandemic. Oh, they were just making the vaccines. He said one of the core countries are making it.
You have a vaccine?
Why are you not part of this, man?
Oh.
I'll take your entire stock!
When we talk about periphery countries, we talk about the primary sector of the economy, which includes any industry involved in extraction and production of raw materials such as farming, logging, mining, and fishing, etc. This is also riddled with political and economic instability. Where in semi-periphery, it is consists of core countries in decline and periphery countries that are trying to move up the world economy. Countries like Cambodia, Bangladesh, and most of sub-Saharan Africa are examples of periphery, where technology is simple, labor-intensive, low-skill, and low-wage occupations are predominant. These are broad generalizations, and within a country, there can be areas of core processes and areas of peripheral processes as well. Semi-periphery are the industrializing, mostly capitalist countries, which are positioned between the periphery and core countries. Semi-periphery regions play a major role in mediating economic, political, and social activities that link core and peripheral countries. They also contribute to the manufacturing and exportation of variety of goods. They are marked by above average landmass, exemplified by Argentina, China, and Iran. External areas are areas where they maintain their own economic systems and, for the most part, manage to remain outside the modern world economy. Russia fits this case well. Unlike Poland, Russia's wheat served primarily to supply its external market. It traded with Asia as well as Europe. Integral commerce remained more important than trade with outside regions. Also, the considerable power of the Russian state helped regulate the economy and limited foreign commercial influence.
Now let's go to the criticisms of the theory. Although Wallerstein did his best to prove his theory, there were still some historians who have condemned what it proposes and its applications. One of the few that attacked the world system theory is the historian Robert Brenner. Brenner opposed the suggestion of world system theory that poor countries are poor because they are dependent on other countries. According to him, there are other reasons and factors of countries' economic backwardness and not just by dependency and other core countries' exploitation. So to prove his claims, he used the country Poland as an example. Poland's economic backwardness did not rise from dependency and core countries' exploitations. And here are some reasons. First, Poland was a vast underpopulated area. Although Poland is quite large, it had only a small population, making its country less productive. Second, most part of the country had unfertile soil. In agriculture, the condition of the soil is very important in farming and producing different products that might help boost its economy. And lastly, it had backward agricultural technology. Aside from the condition of the soil, agricultural technology is also important in agriculture. So it is considered one of the reasons of Poland's economic backwardness. To further prove his claims, he compared it to England, who have internal agrarian transformations and technological advancement in agriculture and had also rapid economic growth that allowed it to rise to the global economic hierarchy. To complete his claims, he concluded that the theory did not consider the reasons for economic success coming from technological advancement and well-developed economic reforms within a country. It is not the exploitation of periphery countries that makes the country more developed. And lastly, the theory also failed to study the other reasons like geological conditions of the country that may affect its development, just like the Poland's poor condition of soil. To summarize Brenner's critics and conclusions, he only wanted to tell us one thing. That is, the Wallerstein theory had many flaws and it must not be considered ethical. Claims of the theory. Many historians have condemned what the theory proposes, but on the brighter side, it had been helpful in many different ways. The world system theory gives us a methodological way explaining how the world works. It also tells us to look at the bigger picture. The theory also had made much of an impact that new researchers are pursuing this approach, further developing and eliminating its flaws. The theory had made several disciplines in social sciences, in history, anthropology, cultural studies, economic, history, and development studies. The world system theory throws us to look at the bigger picture. It means instead of looking at societies individually, it must be looked at as a whole in which countries are all connected in a single world system. Until now, there are still researchers who seek deeper, studying and improving this theory to make it more ethical. The theory was used as basis for these new disciplines because, we like it or not, it is already part of our lives. That's how big the impact is.